You only get one chance at this, and you got to treasure those moments. There's nothing like the days that we live in now where we think, I should have done that. When you're given that opportunity, do your best. Just be you.
This podcast is proudly supported by the Ōtara Network Action Committee, ōNAC, community-owned, community-driven, and community-led.
Kia ora once again, and welcome to the We Ōtara podcast. My name, of course, is Vincent Tyrone Vitalina. I want you all to remember my name because I want you to be part of my family. This podcast is brought to you by ōNAC, Ōtara Network Action Committee. They are full of superheroes and superheroines who are looking after Otara, and they're there to fight for us. So if you ever see them around the street, such as Salipaea or Jen Lotu, give them a big high five and give them a big reminder that they're heroes and they're loved. So we have an awesome guest today. He's part of my awesome neighborhood down in Clover Park, as well as an amazing youth advisor. Say hello to Albert Vahaakolo. Welcome to the show. I feel privileged to speak to you. When we were talking earlier, you had a lot of things to share, and when we were sitting in the van, I heard a lot of great things. So to keep up to date with our viewers and our listeners, please, could you share something about your journey, what got you here?
Sure. Look, my name is Albert Vahaakolo. I come from a family of 12. I actually rank 6 in that family. I'm married with a lovely woman named Carol Ann Vahaakolo, and I've got 7 children, 6 girls and 1 boy.
Let me start off with, we were talking about, before all the recording started, we were talking about our awesome neighborhood of Clover Park.
Sure.
Could you tell us what was it like growing up in this area around Otara, Clover Park area?
I think there is. I think gangs back in those times were a bit more respectable. My mum used to run a drop-in down Ōtara, a dance in the Otara Community Hall, a band by that name called the Grease Monkeys, very well known, but very cheap to just go to a dance for 50 cents. Gangs were quite respected. They didn't interrogate. They might have wore a patch, but you didn't feel intimidated. When you look at Ōtara as far as community, things have changed. Like, to me, growing up in my environment, when you were maybe giving a task to do, whether it was a job or whether it was even mowing the lawn, you didn't have to think twice about doing the job. You moved. Today, I feel our young generation's moved away extremely. There's almost like you don't do things for free. There's always got to be something in it. What's in it for me? I think the level of respect has dropped as far as our respect for our elderly. Whether it's, just due to their own environment, struggles that they're facing, whether it's trying to find themselves. I think the generation of today, as I was talking to Will, I got to say the younger ones today are facing pressures that I never faced when I was young. In saying that, I still think they can still learn from our old people, getting back to the basics about respect, honor, being honest. Because it's those things that I think, even young women and young men are looking for. They're characteristics that you can't buy, but they're characteristics truly that are brought up in what we call our old-time families.
I definitely agree to that, because my father and my mother, as well as my siblings, taught me in that sort of way to always respect your elders. And I honestly still believe to this day that if you're going to respect the past, respect the elders that are around you, because they have paved, they sweat, bled every day to keep these paved paths towards wherever you need to go for you to easily access. And I honestly do believe that there should be something where a young person like myself should be able to be not only obligated, but feel like they have a sense of, I can do this, but I know for a fact that there may not be any form of money or some sort of entitlement to it. It's just that it's the sense of a right thing to do.
Definitely.
And I honestly believe that with parents, there's always a tougher job, especially in this current generation. So when it comes to parents, what would you say to the current generation parents who are trying their very best to hang in there with the young ones?
Sure.
How would you advise them? Because it's quite hard in this generation, including the fact that external factors like the COVID virus and whatnot. How do you keep them motivated?
I think life's about being real. I think as a parent, I think we need to provide options for our kids. I think even basic options. I think if you tell them off and send them to your room, don't forget that they're in the room. Kind of go back to them, encourage them. I think it's about sharing your failures, sharing them to them where you've come from. I don't think it's about being hard on them all the time, which I know that we are, but you don't want to duplicate your own. You don't want to make your kid to be something that you were. I think life is about appreciating for them for who they are. And then I think the difficult thing is that, for parents is that it's not a one size fits all, but it's about trying to find who your kids are and helping to build their character. Again,
going back to this generation, it's quite hard to. I see kids who come into our holiday programs. They have different characteristics, and they don't know how to act around people. I say that very loosely because act is a way of, well, not really a way of expression, but more of how they feel they should act around people. Mm-hmm. So when I talk to the kids, I make sure that I talk to a tone that I would like to talk to them. I call them sirs or madams because then I make them realize that they're important.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think the beauty of marriage is that your wife has a tendency to pull you back into line because sometimes we bring work home.
Yeah.
And as soon as our kids talk to us, we're still in the work mode.
Yeah.
And I think if you're working with young people, we forget that you're no longer at work. You're at home. And I think it's the beauty about your wife kind of having to fine tune that. You're at home now.
Hopefully I can get someone like that who is able to be able to divide me from that.
Sure.
Because like you said, work does get in the way in your own passion. And when it does, it starts to get burned. So
definitely.
We were discussing about you're a carer. I find that amazing thing as we have a community that cares a lot. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to organizations such as ŌNAC and whatnot, what would be your standpoint, and how do we take care of not only just families, young families, but our elderly, because they have, like we said, have the experience, but how do we keep them healthy and well aware within our communities? Because I notice that some of our nanas and papas don't see what's going on in our own community. But when they do, it's sort of too late when it does happen.
Definitely.
So how do we keep them informed and keep them with us? Keep them informed with that sort of thing.
I only can recall reference to my own parents. Life's about being real, and it's the beauty about parents and grandparents. You don't have to put on a face mask. You can always be who you are, and I think that's one of the things that you always can give to your grandparents or whoever you're looking after, just to kind of be yourself. Take the opportunity that you can to care for them. Yeah. Also realizing that they're not where they used to be. And, one of the things that I found as a carer, especially to my own parents, was going back to my own kids and just reminding them, hey, look, mum and dad are getting old. And there's going to be times when you go down there that they're not going to remember who you are. And it doesn't mean to say that they're upset at you or they don't know who you are. It's that sometimes when you become old, you become forgetful. So it's just kind of reminding them and just learning to just move past it. They haven't forgot you, but they're just at that point in their lives where they're just becoming a bit forgetful. So, it's being real. It's doing what you can. I think as young people, you got to realize you only get one chance at this. And you got to treasure those moments. There's nothing like the days that we live in now where we think, oh, I should have done that. When you're given that opportunity, do your best. Yeah. Just be you.
I honestly feel as a young person, we tend to keep moving forward. We keep going faster and faster to keep up with the pace. And I always remember my parents working hard, but they weren't working as fast as we were. Just to hear you say that, just to keep us reminding about who we have now is important. It's like we said earlier in the van, the stories that we record here on this podcast is important. It keeps a record for those who are wanting to know about Albert, about our Sullys, about Judy, and it's important to keep that going. So what can you say to those who are listening at the moment, especially our youth, what piece of advice could you give to them? What could they do if they're in the situation where they're just so lost and they can't, and they're too far, they're too way ahead of themselves, thinking that they can't make it back? What advice can you give to them to bring them back to where they were, to remind them they're in a safe place?
Life comes with the good times and the bad. And I think when you find yourself, you're in a rut or you need some help, it's nice to know that God is just a prayer away. But what does that mean, that God is just a prayer away? And, most of my times talking here is just about being real. And when you talk to God, you got to talk to God like the way I'm talking to you right now. God is real. And sometimes we don't always see the answers that God has for us in front of us. But sometimes when we want to answer, we forget that sometimes those simple answers are staring us right in the eyes. That's why God places parents in your life. They're like bus stops. They're there to point you the way. They're there to show you where to go, how to do things. We mightn't always agree with what mum and dad do. But if you look at their lives and you look at how they've turned out pretty good. So surely some of the choices that they've made in life, if they've helped them, they can help you. I find prayer is a great way. It brings God down to man. I find the Bible is the Bible is so interesting. There's nothing in it that the Bible calls, there's nothing new under the sun. I know that when we read it, it looks difficult and people might say, hey, the problem with it, Albert, there's too many translations. And true it is. But it doesn't matter what translation, it doesn't change who God is. So I would tell people, turn to God. I'm a great believer that when you're working with young people, it's to provide them options. And one of the reasons I do that is just because sometimes when they hit a rut, because their option's not working for them, hopefully they might try mine. And if it works for them, then that might encourage them. Hey, there are people out there who've got words of wisdom. They can help. You just need to give a lending ear.
As a young person listening to you, your words are very soft, but they have meaning behind them, so that it impacts as twice as hard. So I'm taking these words as I hear them, as words that I can take with me on my own journey. So once again, thank you so much for saying that. Coming towards our end, I always like to leave our viewers and our listeners with our amazing guests with words of wisdom or a quote that they like to say. So, is there anything you want to share to those who are listening? A passage or a quote that you would like to share?
Sure.
To them?
There's a saying that goes, little becomes much when God is in it. And I know that in life we think that, why do we need to involve God in a lot of things? There are many verses in the Bible. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct you. But, the reason why we involve God, because God is a relationship God. He wants to have a relationship. And if he didn't, then you've got to ask the question, why did he send his son? And the main reason why God sent his son was to bring us back to him. So, for me, the words that I'd give to anybody, If you look back in your life, somewhere along the line in your life, God has touched your life or brought people into your life, and He's brought them into your life for a reason. And what I would do in my life, if I was you as a young person, I'd think about that and I'd say, well, what does God want from me? God only wants one thing for you. God's not interested in your past, but He definitely is interested in your future.
Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Once again, thank you so much, Albert. I'm speechless. The first time well done, I'm speechless. Or maybe the third time. But I'm speechless here today. My father and my mother would love to talk to you. My sisters and my brother would love to have your company. May God be good to you as He's good done to me and my family.
Likewise. Thank you.
No worries. And thank you once again for watching. I hope you've been blessed like I have, as well as those who are around our room. May God be good. We'll see you in the next episode.